Okay, guys, this is part 3 in the series about the green zone and what all the occult symbology of that movie and the predictive programming, and they have to tell us what they're going to do before they do it, is about. And I would highly recommend you go watch parts 1 and 2 so you can be up to speed on how all this ties into the prophecy. I'm just going to recap a tiny bit. And I am dealing with a lot of allergies, and my throat is very, very dry and lots of tickling coughs and that kind of thing. So I'm going to try to stay in with this. I do have to have a cough drop in my mouth, so hopefully you can hear me. But the connection with the World Cup is that, and he wants me to say this, the prophecy was not given to the church per se, okay? I mean, yes, the church knew about it and was supposed to know about it from the prophet Joshua. But the church was not the direction of the prophecy, if that makes sense. Because the prophecy was basically to the people who are left behind and also to the people who are running the show in the dark forces, that there will not be their occult World Cup in these dark ceremonies that they do. Whatever it is, God knows that they have some kind of cup that is related to this green color and the green stone, and that you might know as the Holy Grail, but really it's not. It's unholy. It's used for nefarious purposes. The powers of it are. And so I didn't know a thing about this till today. And if you go back and watch the other 2 videos, you see this little just trail that I've been taking on. And I'm trying to tell you everything that I know. But you will understand that that prophecy was basically a warning to them, or I'm not going to let you do it the way you want to do it. Okay? You will not have your World Cup ritual in your magic world that you're doing, because it's not going to be business as usual for those of you who are left behind. It was a prophecy basically directed at them, but also telling the church, you need to get ready, okay? You need to get ready. Because the World Cup is sort of it's kind of a duality here, folks. They do this World Cup sporting event at the same time every year and every 4-year rotation. And it has to tie back into their actual World Cup occult practice. That's not going to happen, okay? That's what the prophecy says is not going to happen. And I've got some inklings as to the next high watch date that we should be watching for, based on this occult knowledge that's been revealed to me today through the research and through the nudges of the Holy Spirit in a way that only God could orchestrate. I mean, it's just blowing my mind too. And also tying into 9/11 and 9/11, what that means and how they're laughing at us with those events or systems as well. Okay? So go back and look at it. I can't go back into recap like I would probably like to. If my voice was better, I would. But we're going to go on to this, okay? That this World Cup has to do with an occult practice, okay? Now, it has to do with CERN, and it has to do with the artifact that was taken out of the Baghdad Museum in the Baghdad or Iraq war. And that was a cover for actually getting these artifacts, because they need Nimrod's tomb or his DNA, because he was actually a Nephilim, became a Nephilim. And there's a picture or a statue or something of Gilgamesh, which is a synonym for Nimrod, holding a lion like it's a kitty cat, okay? He's like holding it up, and it's so little compared to him, okay? And there's a FOIA request for it as well, so go back and look at the first one, and you'll see the evidence is actually there for what I'm presenting, okay? But now let's get into CERN, what's going on with this. So the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva, Switzerland, and it also runs through parts of France, I think, if my memory serves correct. And it's built over this Apollycum, I guess I'm saying that right, ancient temple of Apollo. And it features a statue of Shiva, the destroyer, today, okay? And I'm going to show you just a little bit of this, and I'll tell you what happens. Now, this is not a full clip. It's just a little minute thing here, and I'm not going to probably play it or do the sound because it's really creepy, okay? But if you can see here, this is the statue of the Shiva there, which is a false god of Hinduism, I think it is. And then all these people are in black cloaks with the hoods on them. And then later on in the video, if you can Google it, you can probably find the whole video. It's about Baphomet and this weird dance that goes on there. And there's a bunch of people that look like zombies in the background, which ties into some other information that God gave me about the Mark of the Beast system. So go back and watch those videos if you're not up to speed. And they're basically trying to open up a portal to the other side, or through the veil, okay, into the dark realm, because they have to do that as the Tower of Babel was a portal opener, okay? That's what it was about. They were trying to open the portal to try to get to God in the third heaven. And God said, no, I'm not going to allow that. That's when he confused the languages, and then they all had to disperse. So they're going to try to do that again, and they are going to be successful because we know there is an Antichrist. And he's not just a guy that's possessed. He's basically someone that they have cloned or done some kind of scientific experiment on him or process on him or something from this Nephilim DNA from Nimrod, from this Gilgamesh tomb that was found in Iraq right before the war started. Because that's what they came to get from these museums. They raided the museums, went right past the gold and straight to these cuneiform tablets with some kind of magic information on it that they needed to know to do these rituals. And then they needed to get their hands on Nimrod's DNA, okay? And so they're going to do something to the Antichrist to make him fortified so that the evil spirits can indwell him with this magic and also this power that CERN has to kind of crack open the veil, okay? That's what they're trying to do. Now, this is their plans. This is their occult strategy that's been revealed to me today through the research and through the Holy Spirit nudging me to ask certain questions or poke around in this thing or figure out what's going on with that. And then it's just all it's just been laid out on the table for me today. So the fact that is going on over this Apollo or Apollyon, which is what your Bibles will call it, that is the thing that's going to be released, okay, from the bottomless pit. That's the thing. And that has to happen. And part of that is that this Antichrist is going to be inhabited by something, okay? And this spirit that comes out is also part of all of that, okay? Now, it's hard for me to explain the whole thing for you right now because I don't want to get you bogged down in it. And maybe I'm not making complete sense right now, so I'll just got to leave that one on the table. But that's what's going on with it, okay, is that there's some kind of thing that they're going to do to bring him to life and to puncture through the veil to get the things that are hidden from us to come onto the scene. But remember, the restrainer has to be removed. Now, ultimately, God is the restrainer, okay? And he has to step out of the way in order to allow this to happen because nothing happens on earth or in heaven without his consent. But in theory, the church, the bride of Christ from the Church of Philadelphia, remember, she's the only one going, who's wearing her white robe and has a clean, pure, repentant heart. Not all Christians are going. Only the ones that are walking with him in white are going to enter the city. All right? Now, I won't get into all the verses here. I'll just say a couple of them. Go read Revelation chapter 3 about the Church of Philadelphia. And you also need to go read Revelation 22:14, or let's really do 22:12 through 15. And that will tell you right there, if you're not walking with him in white, if you've got dirty robes on, then you're not coming in. Okay? No sin in your heart. You must be clean and pure in your heart spiritually, like a virgin, in order to go in the rapture. Luke 21:36, pray that you be counted worthy to escape all these things and stand before the Son of God. Okay? But these people in CERN, what they're doing is as soon as they're allowed to do it, they're going to try to use this device that they've created to use high energy particle collisions as a technological Tower of Babel to rip the space-time fabric, the veil is how we would think of it, shattering the spiritual prison walls to pull Nimrod's spirit back to Earth. So they've got to have the mechanics so the body of the Antichrist can actually contain that level of evil, because I guess a normal human just wouldn't be able to do it. It has to be Nephilim DNA or cloning or whatever the science is. But they also have to have his spirit inhabiting, which would be the spirit of the Antichrist or the spirit of Satan, okay? And so then you would see that in Revelation 9:11. I'm going to get to about 9:11 and 9:11, what that all means really. But it says, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name has Apollyon or Apollo. Okay, and that goes back to, this is the ancient temple of Apollo where this thing is, okay? Which is why they're doing these rituals there, why they're putting false gods out in front of it. I mean, it's pretty obvious, okay, that it has something to do with the occult. But what's going on here with this 9/11 is that in their way of thinking, the numbers 911 or 9/11 are about intentional destruction of physical and spiritual barriers to open a dimensional gateway. That's what those numbers represent in the occult, in their mindset, okay? There's also, because, and here's the funny part about it. Not funny in a way like haha, but funny like this is how evil they are, okay? They've used in America the numbers 911 for us to call for help, right? For emergency purposes. If you're not in America, that's what it's for. It's like you call to get the cops to come, or if your house is on fire, or you need, somebody's having a heart attack or something, you call 911, okay? That's what you call, and then people come. And they're using that, I think, as a way to rub our noses in it. Like, you normally call 911 to get help, but listen, we're going to bring all kind of destruction on you and there's no help coming, okay? That's what they're doing here. They're also using 9/11, which a lot of us have figured out that is no conspiracy theory. There was a conspiracy there, okay? Things just do not add up with all that stuff going on. And now when you hear the occult thinking about that number and what these towers represent, it's going to all click, okay? So in the occult way of thinking, the pillars or the towers, two of them, are called Boaz and Jachin or something like that, Jachin, Jachin. And for them to open up this dimensional gateway, those towers or pillars, name those two names, have to be torn down. So they needed the symbology of it, and you'll also see that in the iPet Goat 2 movie. It's like a cartoon, but it's real dark and crazy. That they're using that as a way to, I think it's more like to tell their people what's going to happen, like in code, but also to sort of advertise it to us like they like to do in this predictive programming stuff, okay? They tell us what they're going to do before they do it so that God doesn't put them in a prison like in the river Euphrates and up in the stars, okay? There's some angels, fallen angels, that are in the prisons there, okay? So that's what they did there with that 9/11 stuff. That was a symbol and also a sacrifice, because a lot of people died, right, to their gods, and that they're going to do that again. They're going to open up this gateway, this portal. So when you see that in the iPet Goat 2 movie, when those towers are coming down, you need to think that's a symbol to them of opening a portal. So you need to think CERN. Okay, don't think Twin Towers, America. While that was a foreshadowing of it, the real symbol there is that they're going to open up a portal and let the Antichrist spirit come through. Okay? So let's see if I want to go into this. Yeah, I kind of think I do. This one's not terribly long right now. Okay. So this comes into the next high watch date. Okay. Now, I have not been given a date as a prophetess, okay? That's not really the way that God uses me. He uses me more with these words of knowledge to tell you guys what's really going on and explain things of what's happening, what the Bible really means, and all that stuff, because there's been a lot of lies been taught to all of us in our churches. And also to defend Joshua and Helingwe as true prophets of God, and also myself, okay? So the next high watch time, though, is this solar eclipse is going to happen on August 12th, and it's going to go through parts of Europe. And it also happens to be, there's some type of, maybe it's going to get into it here. Yeah, like a 34th parallel line that's important in the occult called the Nimrod line, or the Gilgamesh line, they might call it that too, that runs in kind of tandem or parallel to this eclipse. And so it's going to cast a shadow over Europe and also sort of run through this Iraq, Babylon area, okay? So that is important for them because they do things at certain times, like it depends on what the constellations are doing, or they do things at an eclipse for certain magic reasons. And I don't pretend to know all of what it all is, okay? But that's what they do. They plan it all out well in advance of what they're going to do, so that when the time of it comes to act, everything is in place and everything is set. And these people have like 100-year plan, okay? Like they don't do anything off the cuff or, hey, let's just plan something different. Like everything is meticulously planned. And a lot of that has to do with these meetings in Davos. Those are kind of like the figureheads, the behind the scenes. Maybe they're not the political leaders, but they're like the billionaires and the people that run commerce and that kind of thing. But they really answer to the real people in power who are not really known. Like, we don't probably know their names or their faces because they're sort of behind the scenes working probably directly under the fallen angels and Satan himself. They're the main wizards and warlocks and sorcerers, and all those things are real. And they're the ones that are kind of calling the shots on earth for the fallen entities, okay? But they're kind of cloaked. But the ones you see going to the meetings there are the ones, and sometimes even the movie stars are there too, and you think, like, what do they have to do with world commerce and stuff? What's that got to do with anything? And it's because they're all in these secret societies together. See, it's not just about the fact that you're a movie star and you want to just happen to go, let's go see what the world's going to do and what commerce is going to do. It's because they hold power in this occult world, okay? So the total solar eclipse is going to cast a shadow over Europe, crossing the 34th parallel, or the Nimrod line is what they call it. And it's a window of deception, the ultimate cosmic blackout. The elite aim to sync CERN's maximum energy runs with the solar eclipse to open the abyss, okay, or the bottomless pit is what the Bible would call it, and project a counterfeit second coming to host Nimrod's spirit. So that's the World Cup ceremony. Somehow it's linked to that. Now, he hasn't really explained to me how that all goes together. But you also have to understand, too, that the book of Revelation is not written in chronological order. And how do we know this? Because Revelation chapter 12 has already happened in part. You know, the Revelation 12 sign of the woman with the 12 stars around her head like a crown. And all of that has happened in September 23rd of 2017 with the Revelation 12 sign in the constellation of Virgo. Remember when the 3 planets came and joined Leo and made the 12 stars, because wandering planets are considered stars in the Bible. And so that is the symbol of that has already happened. So some of these things in Revelation are not necessarily in chronological order by the chapters. So this bottomless pit thing of the spirit of Nimrod or Apollyon or Apollo, Gilgamesh, that all thing is coming back to the forefront, okay? But it's not going to happen when they wanted it to. Their World Cup ceremony is not going to happen according to their plans because God is going to get his bride, okay? So the other thing I want you to remember here is that Acts and Joel both tell us that the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great, and most versions will say terrible, day of the Lord. Okay? Now, that wording is also in the book of Malachi. You need to go back and read Malachi 3 and 4. I'm telling you right now, there's a bunch of stuff in there that's going to play out really soon here about this great and terrible day of the Lord. Also, Joel chapter 2 is the book of the rapture. You need to go back and read it. It's not what you've been taught. It's not about all of these other things that are happening way into the book of Revelation when the church is already gone. How do I know the church is leaving early? Well, I'll tell you, because Revelation chapter 3 says that you are going to get a crown that can be taken away. It also tells us there in that same chapter that you must be walking in white and be victorious, or you can have your name blotted out of the book of life. So if you look back in Revelation chapter 4, verse 4, you will see that there are some people called the elders there that have on a crown and white robes. Where did they come from? They came from the Church of Philadelphia. You will see later on in those chapters there that they're the only people there that are watching him open the seals. How do we know that they're people and not some kind of other angelic beings or creatures that God has created of some kind that we don't know about yet? Well, because it tells us in Revelation 20 verse 4, that they're people sitting on thrones. The elders are people. Okay? There's no people physically in heaven. They're in heaven in spirit, right? Our spirit goes to be with Jesus. But these are people with bodies that can sit on thrones, okay? So that's how we know that it's a pre-tribulation rapture or a pre-seal opening rapture, okay? Because the people are there to watch him. Remember, John is crying, and one of the elders says, "Oh no, don't worry about it. You know, the Lamb is conquered. He can open the scroll." So there's something to do with some kind of eclipse that's going to come. And I don't know how there's going to be a red moon into blood at the same time as an eclipse. But the Bible says it, so I believe it. Okay, it's right there. In Acts and Joel, right there. You see? So we need to be looking at eclipses very heavily because remember, God is very mathematical. And he sets all of these things into motion before, man was ever created. And so he has a big grand plan here that he's working. And so since he created the sun, moon, and stars, and for signs and for seasons, which means appointed times, he would have those things in place that they could do this. Now, how the moon's going to turn blood at the same time, I don't know. But I'm sure there's an explanation for it, how it would happen at the same time. So let's see if we can finish up here. So we're about 24 minutes in. All right, so the ultimate truth, the true unshakable matrix that outlasts all artificial, synthetic, elite structures, okay? The New Jerusalem, the divine city of God built on the real foundation of emerald. So we come back to this You'll have to go back, I think it's video 2, where we talk about this green stone, or the sorcerer's stone, which in the occult lore fell out of Satan's crown. Because remember, he had every precious stone was his covering, and he even had like musical instruments into his body. Their lore, or their side of the coin, is that they say that Michael hit him in the head when he fell into the second heaven, because that's where he lives right now. Second heaven is space behind the veil. And that this big emerald fell out of his crown, and then they later fashioned that into some kind of a chalice or goblet, which is the Holy Grail, is not what they say it is, okay? And, you know, they've told you it's the cup of Christ, and it was at the Last Supper and all this stuff. Well, it's not. It's really about Satan's goblet, okay? And so they've got like a counterfeit sort of thing going on with this emerald city and this emerald that became the goblet. But the real emerald and the real use of these stones will be in the New Jerusalem. So remember, the stones themselves are not evil. It's what they're choosing to do with it, okay? The elite synthetic transhumanist network is a temporary fraudulent imitation of God's true eternal kingdom. So they always want to take something that's good and pure and holy, and they want to pervert it. And so we also see these stones here, these different stones we've been talking about in this whole series, in Revelation 21:19 through 20. The foundations of the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones, the fourth an emerald. Okay? So I hope that you are encouraged. I hope that you are as enlightened as I've been today, when all this has kind of been dropped in my lap, but I wasn't even looking for it, y'all. I wasn't even looking for any information. I just sort of left it in God's hand, like, I'm here. If you want to tell me something, you can tell me something. And lo and behold, a movie I wasn't even looking for, at the very end of it, has all of this information that we need to know. And it ties back to what the World Cup is. The World Cup has to do with the occult practice that they're going to do to try to get Nimrod, Gilgamesh, Apollo back to life, which ties into why we went to war in Iraq. I mean, it's mind-blowing. And it also ties into this green. And it's just so funny. I'll kind of recap here for a second. The director's name, last name in the Green Zone movie with Matt Damon in it, is Greengrass, okay? Which is a representation of the material world, or the people who are kind of in the dark, the uninitiated masses don't know what's going on, but the people in the know do. That's what that green grass represents to them. And then we have the green zone, or the Emerald City is what they have coined this area in Baghdad, which is right over ancient Babylon, okay? And the fact that that green theme is running through with this green glasses in the original book of The Wizard of Oz, everybody had to put on green glasses in the book because of the brightness of the city. And so they actually had them like locked in with the key on the people's faces. And so the fact that all of that had to happen for them to be able to see the greenness of the city, which is, in the occult way of thinking of it, is you're in the dark, or you don't see the truth. We've got a little smoke screen going, a little filter that you're looking at things through. But when we take that off, or we don't have it on, the people that are in the know here, then they're saying, you're getting tricked. You're being fooled, okay? And I want you to also think about this too. Have you ever noticed that celebrities want to wear a lot of colored glasses? Have you ever wondered, why do you need to wear colored glasses? What's the thing with that? And a lot of them want to wear green colored glasses. Or there's a big push in Hollywood for everybody to say, oh, green's my favorite color. It's my favorite color too. And they always want to talk about the color green, which is sort of weird. Like maybe 10-year-olds or elementary school kids will be like, what's your favorite color? Well, my color is this. Why are adults going around saying what their favorite color are? You know, what's the point of that? We don't need to know what colors are, do we? So there's just a bizarreness about this. And then when you tie in the Hobby Lobby filtering of the artifacts through their Museum of the Bible as the money launderer and this whole thing. And guess what the Hobby Lobby family is called? Well, it's called the Green family. So you tell me, what do you think? What has been revealed to us today is that this World Cup has to do with this green goblet ceremony, which I guess they call the World Cup, because all the world's going to drink of this cup from the Antichrist. But they're not going to get to do it on their timetable. He's saying there's not going to be a World Cup because it's not going to be business as usual for those who are left behind. Okay? So they're not going to get to do it on their timetable. God is throwing some kind of monkey wrench into their whole scheming, and they're not going to like it. But you need to get in the boat. If you've jumped out of the boat because you could not figure out, like all of us, what was going on with this World Cup, well, it's because that prophecy wasn't directed at you personally. It wasn't directed at the World Cup soccer personally. It was directed at this cup ceremony that they do. Go look it up yourself. There's a ritual about a cup. And the whole world's going to drink it. So stay in white, stay ready, clean, pure, repentant hearts. You need to be ready to go before August 12th, and you should be ready every day. That is very true. But there's going to be some kind of eclipse where the moon is going to turn red and the sun is going to go dark. We know that's coming before the great and terrible day of the Lord. So prepare your hearts and get ready, because he told us through his prophets he was coming, and the king is coming.